Time is often likened to water because it moves forward ceaselessly. Along the direction of this flow, the Grand Canal has witnessed 14 centuries of glory. With the development of railways and then freeways, however, it has now been outmoded in its original function. How can this great waterway continue to have a purpose? As the longest and oldest man-made waterway in the world, still in use today, the Grand Canal of China has been inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List, becoming one of the significant symbols representing Chinese culture. Since the 18th National Congress of the CPC in 2012, a transformative change, akin to a rebirth, has been taking place along the canal and its branches.
就是1、2、3、4、5，先出来，跟我都是手心的1、2、3、4、5、6。那你们6个跟韩老师，我们先说一下，今天我们是带着任务来的啊。比如说这个，我今天我就是一个戴胜宝宝，那我们今天能不能看到我的这个鸟亲啊、鸟妈妈什么的啊，就看你们自己来记录，还是老规矩，大致记一下数啊。
This is a birdwatching event organized by the Lovebirds Association of Beijing Subcenter. President Yi Jian has chosen the Grand Canal Forest Park in Tongzhou District for the activity. Today, an ecological green space, it covers an area of 713 hectares, with one side being the former route of the Grand Canal.
我们循着声音去找，它不太好找。山斑鸠，山斑鸠。 那个棕色的是绿头鸭，白色的是串的家鸭。看这个水，哎，看这个，看这个，这儿呢，这儿，哎，这儿呢。咱们现在看见咱们这个主河道是大运河，从杭州一直到北京，这是一条经济走廊。我们现在今天又不同呢，我们不光是 看到的古运河，我们还要再看一看我们运河两岸还有什么样的生态变化。走，继续往前走。因为我家住在那个靠着北运河那个五河交汇那儿，再早个10多年，我们来到这块的北运河的时候，这块是很严重的这个味道的，你都不用到跟前都能闻到。 那随着这个环境的治理，一些这个有污染的企业的搬迁，大运河森林公园的这个修建，我们看到的不一样的这个水岸环境。北运河这一块水鸟调查这几年也是不断增长，说明我们的环境越来越好了。今天咱们把大概刚才现在关的有10多种鸟，啊，这个鸟名大致能记录几个种？
大杜鹃、灰喜鹊
啊，
白巧
啊。
黄尾尖，黄尾尖。
那我今天咱们布任务的时候说了，我们已经辨别几个声音，是吧？哪个同学能给我说？先说说我这个平时叫是什么一个声音？来，婉丁。咕咕。啊，欧阳同学学得很好。欧阳同学给我们学一个小嘴乌鸦的叫声。啊，就这声，就这声，就这声。
During the day-long activity, the students identified over a dozen bird species. This amounts to only a small fraction of the more than 200 species of birds observed in the area around the northern part of the canal in 2022. In recent years, moreover, the number has been growing. With its glory days as China's main transport artery now long past, the Grand Canal has undergone a quiet transformation, returning to nature to become an urban ecological paradise. For centuries, the canal served as the umbilical cord of Beijing, connecting to the waterways that formed the skeleton of the city's earliest layout. Today, the capital has grown into a megacity, with a population exceeding 20 million. Such a concentration of people often brings about deteriorating living conditions and resource shortages. How to address urban issues and meet the need for both development and livability has once again placed people's hopes on the canal. Here is the planning exhibition hall of the Beijing City Subcenter. The planner, Yun Shuang, is once again reviewing her solutions.
咱们副中心段，大概总长度北运河是17公里长，然后这个河道平均宽度是200到300米。
这个河还是穿城而过，
对，
这个整个副中心是在大运河两岸这么发展，所以还是要把这个运河对于城市的这个影响和它的加分项要尽可能的用足。
In 2012, Beijing decided to designate Tongzhou as its subcenter, aiming to alleviate urban pressure and stimulate growth in the surrounding areas. The Grand Canal, running through Tongzhou, was a crucial factor in selecting this location.
我们设计团队就是刚接到那个副中心规划的时候，我们真的特别开心，因为有这么一条河穿城而过，让这个城市拥河发展，这是非常难得的自然的一个条件和禀赋。做城市规划是谋划未来，可能随着5年、10年或者更长，整个未来大运河将是副中心特别重要的一个生态的一个大的纽带，它会串联起副中心很重要的城市功能节点。依托这种1000年的运河，会给副中心带来完全不同的城市的体验，也会给市民带来不同的滨水的活动的体验。
With the shifting of the tide of time, the value of the Grand Canal has been rediscovered, connecting the city with nature and linking history with the city's future in a fresh new way. Along both sides of this ancient waterway, the Beijing municipal government, theater, museum, and library stand tall, surveying the area's rebirth. A subcenter characterized by a harmonious integration with water has taken shape. As the only canal in China that connects north and south, the Grand Canal's contribution today is being made, not only in environmental improvement, but also in the basic means of living for hundreds of millions of people. In the densely populated North China Plain, excessive groundwater extraction has created a massive water deficit. Many regions today depend on a mega project called the South to North Water Diversion to replenish their water sources. The Grand Canal is one of the key components of this lifeline for water supply. 4 large pumping stations work simultaneously to move over 30 million cubic meters of water each day. The water is transported along the old course of the Beijing-Hangzhou Grand Canal in parallel channels, heading north to places along the route, such as Shandong, Hebei, and Tianjin. This is the Jiangdu Key Water Conservancy Project in Yangzhou, Jiangsu Province, with the Yangtze River to its south and connected to the Huaihe River in the north. Situated at the intersection of the Grand Canal and the new Tongyang Canal, its extensive network of waterways makes it the starting point of the eastern route of the South to North Water Diversion Project. For centuries, the Grand Canal transported grain. Today, its most important cargo is actually water from the Yangtze River. Hongze Lake, Luoma Lake, Nanxi Lake, Dongping Lake, these former water reservoirs on the canal have been transformed into storage reservoirs, feeding the thirsty North China region. Linking 5 major water systems, the Grand Canal has become the central hub for regulating north-south water diversion. From the viewpoint of water resources management, the Grand Canal is not obsolete. On the contrary, it once again is vital for the nation's well-being. In Jining, Shandong Province, a 2,000-ton cargo ship bound for Taizhou in Jiangsu Province is being loaded. Jining is the northernmost navigable city along the Grand Canal today. From here, ships can travel southward all the way to Yangtze and reach the sea, connecting various places in Jiangsu and Zhejiang. Ship owner Yang Yongwei has been navigating this canal for over 20 years. In Jining alone, there are more than 7,000 ships and over 10,000 people continuing in this ancient livelihood.
我从16岁就用船，一直干到现在。父辈嘛就是用船的，当时是跟着家里的老人用船，就随我们京杭大运河往江苏那的运。他那个时候用船就是水泥船，没有这样的钢制船，在家里面就是跑个短途，不像现在就是一年四季都待在船。
Yang Yongwei's cargo ship sets off early. After a turn at Yuejin Port, it enters the Grand Canal. All along the way, there are boatmen like him who make a living on rivers. Compared to going overland, water freight is more cost-effective and is the preferred choice for bulk cargo. With an annual throughput of over 600 million tons, the Grand Canal facilitates north-south logistics at ultra-low cost, as well as providing a living for its boatmen.
就像我们那个村里吧，那个大部分给我这个年龄的，就是几乎都是用船。用船这个东西吧，怎么说，就是哪怕就是两口子能用到一块儿，你给像5个人都不一定就是说喝的那个脾气能合得来，因为这个你像看我们24小时都在一块儿，该干什么了，自己心里都有数。 就是可以说，我给我老婆就是说一个手势，她都知道干什么，我也知道干什么。我们用船的都是船就是家，几乎就是一年四季都待在船上，最多也就在家能过到1个月吧，最多，甚至都过不到。看时间可有了。
就是哪里完了？
现在都12点了，4点半走这也不早。
4点半。
你像我们，就是隔一段时间回家看看孩子什么的，在家还是住不习惯，在家都住不习惯，就是在床上住的习惯了。也说不出来，就是在床上住的比较，就是说也习惯了吧，是一种生活。
For over 14 centuries, countless boatmen like Yang Yongwei have been shuttling back and forth between the two ends of the canal. The canal is their way of life, and they are the source of its vitality. While the times have changed, the Grand Canal continues to flow through this land, everlasting and inexhaustible. In Changzhou, Jiangsu Province, 73-year-old photographer Tang Desheng is searching for the Grand Canal he photographed 50 years ago. In the 60s and 70s, of course, China was a very different place.
这条河就是这条原型。像现在你看，都是高楼大厦林立啊，像过去的都是平矮的小房子啊、小平房啊。 这个连工厂很少见到的，你看到吧？最近我带了这些老照片，在寻找我老照片的原点，再重新拍一张。在这将近50年变化过程当中，看看今天的新的运河两岸的一个长洲农场。我跑大运河可以说快60年了，因为祖祖辈辈都住在运河边上。我们不仅仅是吃饭要靠它，毕竟我们家乡是南来北往，运河就相当于今天的高速公路。我总觉得跑这个运河的时候，有一种情感。这哪里？
这找了，
这找了，对，这找了。
游泳这个厂里办的。
对。
我一看就知道。
啊，你一看
因为我喜欢游泳，我知道。
原来在运河里面游。
哎，小时候就是在这里。
50年过去了，啊。
The Grand Canal is the mother river of this city. It carries the memories of local people and also creates new ones for them. What Tang Desheng is doing is preserving these memories.
这个运河两岸的变化很大的，我可以说是一个佐证人。比如说，50年代、60年代小木船，70年代水泥船，到那个钢板船，现在有1500吨都有。我把这都记录下来，我从它每一次建闸、每一次造桥，我都不断的记录。我现在大运河整理出来底蕴是2万多张，运河的变化、船名的变化，我都有照片在。
Through Tang Desheng's lens, people are the most beautiful scenery of the Grand Canal, a subject he will never tire of photographing. The Grand Canal was born for them. Because of them, it will never cease to grow.
我觉得人是最可贵的。其实每一个时代情绪表都是打落在人们的脸庞上和人们的服装上，以及人们的生活上。人的变化也就是社会的变化，也就是我们这个国家的整体的变化。
From the ecological transformation of a canal section, to the urban planning and layout of a city, and even to national water allocation and logistics transport, every fascinating turn of the Grand Canal proves its vitality. And all these changes stem from changes in people. A brand new era has endowed the canal with new life. In 2014, the Grand Canal was listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Unlike many other heritage sites, it is a dynamic waterway that continues to grow and change. On the land it flows through, people inherit, explore, and create, using extraordinary wisdom to continue the glory of the Grand Canal. What is the relationship between the Grand Canal, a World Heritage Site, and ordinary people? This is the question that Qi Xin, an editor at the People's Daily, is pondering. For over a decade, he has been cycling along the waterway, continuously observing and questioning, exploring new ways to experience it.
我从小生长在天津的河边，然后工作的时候每天都跨过通惠河，跨过大运河的顺边路，它改变了我特别多的东西。大运河文化遗产是什么？是许多人都想知道，我们也想努力回答的问题。但是每年的答案实际上是不一样的。为什么？就是因为我们对大运河的理解 不断的加深。您是就生在杨柳青？
对。
几年以前，我们去看大运河的时候，更多的是寻找两岸那些老的痕迹，哪些更有过去的风俗和文化。但是现在，我们更多的是看两岸河和人的关系，就是大运河对人的生活产生了什么样的影响，人又反过来对大运河的命运、文化遗产的命运做了什么和贡献了什么。
哇，还是不少啊，这鱼啊！早来了，您了。对，来了。哎呀，好久不见你，好久不见。哎呀，
这点儿就是咱们，应该离咱们住的地儿就很近了。
对，跨过马路就是。那个时候，咱们管这个叫嘛？就河边，就叫河边。我的印象就叫河边。您觉得怎样？变公园好事儿哈？
好事儿，当然好事儿，大好事儿，
大好事儿。
这是文化。
原来我们认为它是一个消逝的文明，现在我们理解大运河，更多的认为它是一个时尚的、不断创造的、可持续发展的例证。中国人给了全世界这种一个是范例，中国人也努力的把这种范例描述给世界，这是我们这一代人应该做的。我们常常思考大运河给我们的精神是什么？我觉得大运河绝对能给所有的人那种信心感，对未来的那种坚信感。我有时也在想，这我是谁？我不是一个专家，我觉得我就是河边的一个人。大运河让我变成了一个骑行的人，让我变成了一个每天去琢磨和去能够体验它的人。它是我生活的一部分，我就是遗产的一部分。
The value of the Grand Canal lies not only in its length, but also in its breadth and inclusiveness. It serves as a carrier of civilization and a backdrop for life. In every era, every individual can leave their own thoughts and creations along this long river. It belongs to not only locals and visitors, but also humanity. In Zhejiang Province's Shaoxing, a 1,000-ton cargo barge is under construction at the Songling shipyard. In the factory workshop, meanwhile, manager He Guoming is working with craftsmen to restore a traditional Shaoxing black awning boat. Over the generations that it has been in business, Songling shipyard has progressed from traditional black awning boats to modern 1,000-ton barges. Yet today, He Guoming is reverting back to building wooden boats.
好，掉头。
我们是得造船，我太爷那时候呢还是造木船的，我爷爷是造木船的。我是17岁开始造船的，原来是200吨，现在能够达到了1500吨。就是因为我们国家发展的速度太快了，这木船不做了，所以老的一个工艺了，也即将失传了。
好，慢慢放下去，慢慢放，哎，慢慢放。
造船的老木匠了，已经都老的都要死去的死去啊。在10多年前，我想不行，就把这个传文化这一块东西一定要把它保护起来。
Within the shipyard, He Guoming has his own private museum. It houses dozens of ancient ship models and thousands of documents, testimony to his dedication over the past decade.
其实我在做船的历史文化这一块的时候啊，一开始的人家在想这个人脑子有没有病，就是像傻瓜一样的，就是一个船模做出来又没用的，几万块钱一张历史资料，给人家想的是不可思议，就是。其实我这样在做，心里就更加踏实，感觉很舒服的感觉。为什么呢？就是我们是造船的，我是为靠运河挣钱。没有运河，如果水路不通，那我们不可能有造船世家。你来过这个世界，你给后人留点东西。我是把我们家族的历史，也要把一个展馆里展示出来，就是我这个梦想。
Heritage, for every person along the canal, is not just a vague concept, but a deep and genuine emotional anchor. Her Guoming's family have been making boats for 5 generations. The history of his shipyard is part of the history of the canal. The ancient canal is the common element connecting episodes in the lives of residents along its banks. It carves the texture of their experiences and imbues their spiritual world. It is the continuous interaction between people and water that has nurtured their unique culture and wisdom. The Chinko Hub in Huaiyan, Jiangsu Province, is one of more than 30 significant sites up and down the Grand Canal that must be protected under its UNESCO World Heritage designation. Through generations, engineers here worked on water management and the construction of sluice gates, giving rise to a unique water landscape. Ding Fingzhen and her team have visited this site countless times for surveying.
这个地方有个堵点，
堵点没有贯通，然后这地方得逐步梳理完善。
这段千万不要动它。每次到那个青口地区去的时候啊，都觉得很迷人，因为这个地方呢，它真的是携带了大量的历史信息，而且呢，感觉到它是一个有灵魂的河道。来过很多次以后，就真的能感受到什么是祖先留给我们的宝贵遗产。那我们今天的话，真的是如果把它搁在这儿，那真的就太不对了，太不对了。但是你去碰它的话，其实也是一件非常慎重的事情。
Nearly 4,000 hectares at Chinko have been under protection since the Grand Canal was inscribed into UNESCO's World Heritage List in 2014. This has conflicted with a plan drawn up earlier by the local government to establish a center for agrotechnology, the Huaiyan Agricultural Science Park there.
我们这个园区75%的面积都在这个遗产的这个保护区，所以在推进这个园区建设的过程当中，确实遇到了很多的矛盾，因为这个遗产的保护区范围内有很严格的建设管理的要求。有一段时间，就是我们团队在思考这个工作的时候，就是没法下手，不知道怎么弄。现在我看是星星点点的开始开了，这个花期的话可以持续。
大约正常的话1个半月，1个半月左右，再过个半个月左右会迎来这个盛花期，那是很漂亮的。
我们发现这个百合呢，非常适合在青口地区发展它的这样一个产业。我们这个农业园区啊，最终目的是为了推动乡村的全面振兴，而这个国家文化公园里面又强调这个文旅融合工程，而我们这个农业是伸手就能够到旅游的，所以呢，我们当时就是豁然开朗。
The edible lilies being experimented on in this area will soon blossom on both sides of the Chinko Hub. The fruit of the lilies will create economic value, while their flowering period can be enjoyed by tourists. Employment provided by such enterprise can drive the common prosperity of farmers. Through the integration of characteristic agriculture with culture and tourism, the Grand Canal and rural revitalization are mutually reinforcing each other, creating a new path of integrated development.
运河，我感觉它是一个流淌的文化。水就是跟智慧相关联的嘛。
那就是说它要变通，这种变通它是顺应规律的变通，它不是折磨，不是折腾，用这种水的智慧来去解决今天的问题，这个可能我们未来的遗憾会少一些。
Innovation doesn't mean creating something out of nothing, and development isn't about starting over from scratch. Protection and development are inherently intertwined. Chinese civilization has shown outstanding innovation, emphasizing adherence to principles without clinging to the past, respecting tradition without blindly following it. The wisdom of making the best use of what's on offer that the Grand Canal embodies is being further developed and enriched by Chinese today. The magnificent Grand Canal, with its history of well over 1,000 years, has evolved into more than just a physical waterway. It embodies a natural and conscious aspiration, a sincere and profound emotional bond, and a wisdom of adapting to circumstances that is passed down through generations. As a World Heritage Site, it signifies a high point of human civilization in the past, while its ongoing evolution represents another marvel created by the people of this land. As early as 2017, General Secretary Xi Jinping remarked that the Grand Canal is a precious piece of heritage passed down to us by our ancestors, flowing culture that should be protected, inherited, and utilized. The construction of a Grand Canal cultural belt then became a national strategy. In 2019, the Grand Canal was planned as a national cultural park. From heritage to park, top-level design has since ignited new vitality in the ancient waterway. The Wuqiao Acrobatic School of Hebei Province is training a new generation of acrobats from all over the country. Wuqiao County in Hebei Province has been called the home of Chinese acrobatics. About 10% of its population is engaged in the acrobatics industry. So, how did this come to be? How did acrobatics become the county's specialty and calling card? Local writer Zhang Yingguang thinks he knows the answer.
在我们小时候，随便玩个倒立啊、后翻、前翻啊，那时候就是我们的一个游戏而已啊，就特别普及。在过去的时候呢，这个地方是盐碱滩地比较多，靠着耕作呢，有的时候是入不敷出的，就通过这个运河到各个码头表演，然后养家糊口。
小小的头颅越有油，我跳着跳着走江湖。南京少溜南京气，北京少溜北京游，南北二京都不少。运河两岸做春秋，运河两岸做春秋呢。我买个历史看一看啊。
In Wuqiao, skills that were originally developed for survival now form the basis of a cultural industry. Hundreds of folk artists have become professional performers, attracting hundreds of thousands of tourists to the county each year.
在过去的打击艺人呢，他的本源的身份他是个农民，他是在农忙的时候回来种地，农闲的时候就出去耍生意。现在呢，就是挣着比较稳定的工资，享受着鲜花和掌声。他们不仅是一个职业一个行业，我想他更多的是一种事业，他就是愿意享受在这里享受这种荣光。
伙计，那么立正，两个绝活，来，伙计，这要8腿伸展。 手也撒开，好，欢迎欢迎呗！
我呢，作为一个作家，就是 一直在记录吴桥杂技和运河的这个互相的作用。我们的杂技艺人，就是因为有了运河的这种通达、这种闯荡的精神，是与生俱来的。就是大运河在为我们的吴桥杂技赋能，我们呢在为大运河赋形，彼此互相补益的，他们的发展形成了一个生命共同体。
Culture stems from understanding, and when knowledge is refreshed, it evolves and gathers energy. By merging with the vast stream of Grand Canal culture, Wuqiao's acrobatics tapped into an endless source of vitality. It is precisely the preservation and development of traditional cultural ecologies that keeps this waterway flowing endlessly.
哇，这只下蛋嘞！你看，牛！哇！
好嘞，你也抓一只吧。
In Nanshu, an ancient town in Zhujiang, Qian Shueshue is taking his 6-year-old daughter Duo to catch shrimps by the river in front of their guest house. This unique joy of the water town is the life they once yearned for.
我民宿前面就是有一条河的嘛。他说：“爸爸，埋头可以吃鱼吗？因为我们家有只猫嘛。”我说可以呀，然后我们就去捞一点。我在城市里根本不会去跟我女儿去在河边去抓虾抓鱼吧，这个是我现在回来觉得最好的一个满足吧。
In the riverside guest house, Duoduo's mother, Zhang Lei, is preparing Nanshuan's traditional Sanpao tea for guests. Sanpao means to brew tea leaves with 3 infusions. 3 years ago, she and her husband left the city to return to their hometown, renting this riverside courtyard to transform it into a guest house. They wanted to allow their child to experience the traditions and human connections of this ancient town.
等等我，等等我。应该说是幸福的童年能治愈一生嘛，所以我希望我女儿她有这么一个幸福的童年。真正你在这边就是小镇上你吹过的一种风，真实的这种生活，才是让你的心是愉悦的。所以想带着多多一起回到就是我们小时候生活的地方。
So-called wildfire rice in the countryside is a childhood memory for the couple. They cook it outdoors over a fire, using ingredients collected from various places, and then share it with neighbors. The warmth of the ancient town and its people lies in these small details of life.
老爸，我说是要后来了，那早上开，那早上开。有时候我带着多多在古镇里面逛，然后就是周边的邻里啊，就是会跟他打招呼。因为现在老人特别多，年轻人都去城里了，像多多这么小的也比较少在古镇里面，所以就变成了大家的小孩一样。
吃野火饭。
但是其实古镇是需要这些年轻人注入的，因为我们老一辈的给我们留下这么好的一个文化底蕴，我们希望是有更多的这种年轻人回来，把我们南浔的这个文化底蕴呢是传承下去。
我要铲。
我跟我老婆已经带了一个很好的头了。这种东西都是潜移默化慢慢影响的，有人去做1个、2个、3个、4个，越来越多的人去做，慢慢的一些好的作品全部沉淀在我们这边，就这样的古镇才是最有魅力的。
哎呦，好大呀！
这湖州货就是我们湖州的货船。
The Grand Canal is the foundation of this ancient community. It has shaped the towns along its banks, and the towns have in turn shaped their residents. Today, the young generation along the canal is shaping a new era. This cultural cycle is the secret of the canal's timeless allure. How should the Grand Canal evolve in tandem with the city? From Beijing to Hangzhou, at the two ends of the Grand Canal, people are working out the future of the waterway with different perspectives. The Hangzhou Iron and Steel Plant was a landmark on the side of the Grand Canal for over half a century. In the city's process of renewal, its closure and relocation has left behind hundreds of acres of old plant and machinery. How to best develop this historical site has been a major challenge.
这个炉门它大概是有100多个，都装一些玻璃幕墙，这个就很有意思了。因为杭钢是代表着杭州工业时代的最大一个厂，对杭州人来说是一个独特的记忆。我们当时呢，就是策划定位，杭州是不缺柔美，缺的是先锋前卫，缺的是跨界混搭。这个呢是一个工业厂房，它体现了一种强烈的一种特征。我们认为，如果利用得好，它会打造成杭州另外的一种旅游目的地。
The Liangma River in Beijing was an almost forgotten canal system, stretching for 10 kilometers through many core urban areas. To develop and transform it, planners and designers had to think carefully about its relationship with surrounding residents and the city itself.
白马河啊，它是纵穿这个东城区，有商业中心，有酒店，有居住区，还有第4使馆区，这样一个地理位置也是作为我们长江区治河的一个重点。所以我们希望通过河流的治理，来使城市面向河流，服务于市民。
With China's big cities developing apace, every challenge sparks the wisdom to overcome it. In Hangzhou, planners are exploring a path of sustainable development where the city and the river thrive together.
滨河集团成立之前，我们杭州市委市政府就有这个理念了。你光靠市场，那么你说公益性的事情谁来做？你光靠政府，没有市场的运营，这种绩效你不可持续啊！这是有违政府跟有效市场的一个衔接。 很多外地游客啊，包括专家学者到我们的3大历史街区，看到最有意思的就是这些原居民的那种烟火气示警卫的那种活动。然后我们这次提升改造，我们运河集团整个班子是多么的小心，我们没有动一棵树，破损的石板，我们把它修缮一下，换掉，就仅此而已。 也就是说，你把这些思路搞清楚以后，不是说仅仅帮我们挣钱，它还大量的给我们省钱。
In Hangzhou, where history is everywhere and culture abounds, managers have revitalized the resources of the Grand Canal through a combination of government intervention and market-oriented operations. They are maintaining the humanistic ecology that the Grand Canal brings to this city, bridging the gap between old and new. In Beijing, the transformation of the Liangma River has been achieved through consultation between the government and citizens. Today, planners Ma Haitao and Chang Qin are returning to assess the outcome of their efforts.
我也还记得那天，好像应该是2018年的夏天，我们在这边跟大家一起来探讨方案，然后4年之后，我们又坐在这边，
今非昔比了哈。
没错，我们是最大的受益者，非常棒，非常棒。
最开始的时候，我们希望呢，就是改变，就是政府一家来单打独斗。我们就解放了思路，首先是跟他们的那些街道、这个沿线的商户啊、周边的居民啊，然后来跟我们来碰，听取他们意见。
以前呢，我们可以说是绕着这个河边走，就是因为太臭了。现在呢，也有一个什么变化，我们还是绕着河边走，我们是绕到这个河边来。
这个荷花就是当时跟那个那边的那个居民啊，还有街道的人访谈的时候，他们就讲到，记得以前这个河里面是有荷花的，但是后面呢就没有了。所以说呢，我们也是算是找寻了当时他们的一些记忆。经过我们的提升改造之后，我们有这种逼水的这样的一个空间，然后上面呢还有一个2层的，我们可以跑步啊、散步的这样的一个空间。现在呢，就从我们的建筑，然后我们到绿化到水岸，它都可以无缝的衔接起来，就是一个新的亮马河，一种新的一种生活方式。
Today's Liangma River is an open and interconnected three-dimensional space. On its bridges, along its banks, and on the water itself, every area has been returned to locals for their use. A river that embraces everyone makes the city more flexible.
以人为本是最终的一个导向，我们是服务于市民的。那么现在我们对于亮马空间呢，实现的是什么？非禁止，也说来到这里的人，我们都是包容的。我们希望人们来到这里当成家里的客厅，我们也希望河流会随着时代的发展，能够带给市民不同的一些印记。
来，开了小下，开了小下啊！
On an ordinary morning, a new service is being offered on the Grand Canal. Under Hangzhou's Gongchen Bridge, people are boarding an affordable water bus for sightseeing and commuting. The banks of the Liangma River in Beijing, meanwhile, are now a favorite route for joggers. From south to north, different initiatives have returned the Grand Canal to the people in diverse yet converging ways. Since its birth, the Grand Canal has witnessed the struggles and triumphs of the Chinese nation. Over centuries, it has stretched endlessly, connecting the spiritual space of natives along its route. In its surging progress, it accommodates and advances, moving forward all the way. Today, the Grand Canal has become a canal for everyone, and each individual has also become a source of its vitality. In areas through which the canal flows, people embrace and merge into the waterway. In the mindset of a new era, they gather together to form a cultural driving force that keeps moving forward. At this moment, the Grand Canal is traversing China's vast land, carrying the nation's understanding and appreciation of nature, witnessing the revival and ascent of civilization. We hear the deep song of the Grand Canal, which represents a contemporary chapter in our ancient civilization. The song has been written and rewritten for more than 2,000 years, as the canal flows through us and will continue to traverse us, leaving behind an everlasting human epic on the land of China.